Hello. In this video, we are going to go over the patch tool. So what I want to do, I want to switch to the patch tool right now. I'm going to click on the patch tool here. With this tool, the functionality is different on how to use this tool. With our previous two tools, with the spot healing brush and the healing brush tool, we're able to create a separate layer and copy or apply the changes to that empty layer. Not so with the patch tool. I'm going to hide my previous layer, my healing brush layer. I do have my art walk layer selected, but I want to make a duplicate copy of this layer. To do so, I'm going to click and drag this layer and drag it over the create new layer. Instead of creating a new layer, it created a copy. So I'm going to rename this layer. I'm going to call this one the patch tool. Within this layer, to use the patch tool, you have to have a layer that has information. So we made a copy of it. So now that I have this layer here, I have my other layers hidden and only the patch tool is selected. Very important that you make sure that your layer order, if I have my original layer on top, but I have my patch tool, I won't be able to see the changes because the layer on top is covering it. So I'm just going to change this layer, the layer order again. You can just click and drag. You see that little blue line? That is telling you where you're going to place that layer. So I just want to make sure that this layer is just above my art walk layer, but I am hiding my other layers on top of it. So within this patch tool, the way that you use it is you first make a selection. So say, for example, we'll go back to this little piece of, I believe it's a leaf or tape. Whatever it is, I want to make a selection. With this tool, you are able to different ways to make a selection. The first one is just make a new selection with this button right here. Wherever you click and drag, it makes a selection. Now we have these little marching ants. You could always add more to the selection by or first you could create a new selection just by going over it to what we have. Whatever you had previously selected disappears, is replaced by your new selection. You could always add to a selection by clicking on this button or by pressing and holding down Shift. I like the keyboard shortcuts, so if I press and hold down Shift, you see a little plus sign on the bottom right hand corner, and now I could add to that selection. I could go over them and they merge. I could continue adding to it, and it's slowly adding to my selection. We could also subtract by clicking on this button, or if you are just on this button right here, if you press and hold down Option or Alt, and right here you can just say, okay, this area I want to get rid of. I'm basically subtracting that part of my selection. You can't just slice it right here. You have to kind of tell it where. If I just go straight line, it gives me something like that. So here, I'm just going to go over it again and say I don't want this portion right here. You could refine this to make it a smaller selection, but we're giving it a selection. Now this one right here is for the overlap, only the areas that are overlapping. So I can show you really quickly, kind of like if I go right here, only keep that area that's overlapping. Now I don't want that. I want to just have a selection over this piece right here. I'm just going to add to it. Let me add right there. Great. So you have one of options, source and destination. Source means that you want to replace whatever is here with the new source material, with this new source reference. So if I click and drag this and say I want to replace it right here, once I let go, it's going to copy that. I'm going to let it go right now. It's copying kind of like the texture, but trying to keep the color that's around that area. So if we go over here, we could try this one again and say, okay, I want to select this area right here. I want to replace this. Right now I have source. I'm going to click and drag it over here to the side. I'm going to press Command or Control D to deselect and go over this area. So this is more of a manual type of changing it, but you're able to do a little bit more compared to the healing brush or the spot healing brush tool. So as we're going around, say for example, what about these right here? I mentioned in a previous video that whenever you're shooting, taking a photograph, if it's easier for you to actually move that object in your image before you actually take it, that would be better than having to do some work in Photoshop. But I didn't in this case, so now I have to do some work in Photoshop. So I'm making a selection over it. And right now I still have source selected. If I click and drag this, I'm just going to drag it down right here and let go. Command D. And now it's gone. I get some of this blue right here because it's maybe some of that tape was selected, but let's try this again. I'm going to zoom in, Command or Control plus to zoom in. I want to go ahead and try to make a better selection this time around this one. Say, I don't want these here. I want to clean them up. I didn't move them when I was taking this image, so now I have to do it in Photoshop. I made sure not to select that this detail, this ridge. I'm going to zoom out just a bit so I could see a little bit more. I'm going to click and drag this now. I want that line to still kind of connect. So let's see, I'll go right here. I'm going to let go of the mouse. Command or Control D to deselect. And then zoom out. And these are placed, again, on their own layer. So I still have my original image. This is kind of like the before and after. So what if I want to try to remove this one? Well, let's try to use it. Let's try this. With a little bit of work, I think we could get rid of this one. And so first step, let's select the area. And I'm going to copy or move this down here. And let's see, we'll say right here. I want the line on the right. Now I'm going to Command Control D to deselect. I want to fix this area, so I'm going to, luckily there's a little bit of tape up here, so I want to copy some of that information here. You can see I don't want this area. I'm going to hold down Option or Alt, and I'm going to deselect that portion. And let's try it. This time I don't want the source because I don't want to, say, replace this with over here. Now a different functionality. I want this to be the destination. I want to send this information down here. So I'm going to try to line this up closely as possible. I'm going to Command D. Here, let's copy a little bit more of this information. I'll just copy this area right here, a smaller section. Command D. And you can see how we're missing the bottom right here. Well, I'm going to maybe copy some of this area right here. I'm going to click and drag it like so. Command D. And I'm going to borrow some of this information to connect it down there. So let's see. Let's maybe go from here on down. Well, here, if I want it to be a little bit larger, I actually want to maybe just a little bit more. Oh, I held down Alt Option. Oops, I meant Shift. A little bit more on this side as well. All right, so I'm going to click and drag this down. And let's drag it again to kind of connect it. Command D. Look at that. Let's look at the before and after. So with some ingenuity and patience, you could always further manipulate your image. One of the cool things about this one as well is we're always coming back to this guy here. Well, here, let's have some fun. I'm going to click on this guy right here and say what you could always do is what if you want to clone him? So it's destination. If I click and drag him over here to the side, and I click and drag, So now there's three of them, Command D. But if you look closely, some of the information behind it, it's still there. You can always undo, edit, and undo, or Command Control Z. I'm going to do this, Command Z again, and it takes me back here. If I want to further fix this, I could always hold down Option or Alt on my keyboard to clean up the selection. So I'm able to have less or more of the selection here. And once I have a better selection, now I could always go about and either move him or place him. Now, I believe the challenge is because there's a car right here as well. But here, instead of destination, let's go to source and say, I want to replace this. Would it be the cars? Information back here. What happens if we do this? I'm going to try to line up the path. We get like a blurry bush there. That might work. Command D. If we want to clean this up now, it's a matter of, let's see, maybe we just get rid of that car as well. So I'm going to copy some of this road here. Maybe the bottom of those bushes there. It's going to be the destination. I want to send this over here. It makes it lighter because of that light that was there. I want to copy some of this sidewalk. Command D. Here, let's copy some of these cars right here. Just the dark part of this cars. Command D. Now this is just trying to use some of the tools, the same tool over and over again. There are ways that you could combine using some of these tools, but we'll save that for another session. So I want to make this a little bit lighter. So Command D, Control D to zoom out. So it's a little bright, but maybe because we know of that area. But now when I, before, after, zoom out. All right. In the next video, we're going to be going over how to use the Content Aware Move tool. So we'll see you in that video.